Our next guest is one of the world's 50 living autistic savants. I've got to get this right. His intellect has been referred to as the most remarkable mind on the planet. Daniel Tammet's genius has astounded researchers, and he joins us to debunk many of the myths surrounding savantism, and his latest book, Embracing the Wide Sky, discusses that. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. I don't even feel worthy to be sitting across from you if your mind has been described as one of the most remarkable minds on the planet, but we're privileged to have you here nevertheless.
Thank you for
First off, tell us, what is an autistic savant? And there's so few of you, I think we really don't know what that means.
Well, savant syndrome is an unusual condition that affects the brain. As you said, there are very few autistic savants that have the sorts of skills that I have, maybe 50 in the world. And usually linked to autism, I have a very high functioning form of autism. And so my brain has developed over the years since early childhood a little bit differently than yours or other people's. And so this gives me certain strengths, things that I can do much more easily than most people can, but also things that I can't do so easily, that most people do very easily. And that's the kind of the paradox of disability.
I think when some people think of this form of autism, they obviously think of the movie Rain Man, they think of Raymond. Are there a lot of parallels there?
There are some. Certainly I love numbers. I like the character in the Rain Man film. There are many things that I can do that the Rain Man character can't do, however. I've taught myself over many years how to have a conversation such as the one we're having now, how to look you in the eye, for example, how to understand body language and so on. And of course, I'm able to talk about my condition, to talk about how my mind works, to write books such as this new one here, Embracing the Wide Sky, which show people how the mind works, mine, but also theirs as well.
People think about, though, dropping a box of toothpicks. Is that the sort of thing that you can figure out the numbers for?
Well, I love numbers, but there are certain things that, certain abilities, and the savant's abilities are, in many respects, extraordinary. Many people say to me, you know, it's amazing the things that you can do with languages and with numbers and so on. But there are certainly myths as well, things that we can't do, that nobody can do, but which have been associated with our condition because it's so mysterious. And one of them, as you say, is this matchstick scene in the Rain Man movie, this idea that we can count instantly hundreds and hundreds of matchsticks, and it's not true. The scientific account by Oliver Sacks that this scene was based on is a flawed account. In the book I show why that was, and debunk some of the myths surrounding how the brain works and how savants' minds work as well. So
again, the idea behind the book is to debunk some of those myths, and also to sort of let people know that the mind of an autistic savant is not all that different from an everyday Joe's mind, right?
Well, no, exactly. I mean, every brain is amazing. And in doing the research for Embracing the Wide Sky, I was really struck by just how amazing everyone's mind is, the things that everyone can do. Everyone can remember so many facts and figures, usually about gossip, for example. You ask somebody about their next door neighbour, they'll be able to tell you so many things. So their memories are pretty good for certain things, and it's just about what we use our minds for. And I also show how we have natural intuitions, everyone, for languages and for numbers, from very early in life, and we lose them. Most people lose those abilities, and savants don't lose those abilities. Our brains are wired a little bit differently. But the good news is that we can all learn how to regain those intuitions and how to think about numbers and language differently. So I give lots of ideas and techniques in the book to help people to do that.
Yeah, you say we can harness some of the same techniques that you do, but I'm not so sure of that, because I was reading here, you learned the Icelandic language in 1 week.
Yes.
Can you give us some Icelandic?
Ég heiti Daniel, I'm called Daniel, og ég frá Englandi, I'm from England, og ég tala íslensku, and I'm speaking in Icelandic.
So you basically learned the language over the course of the weekend. You say that's the sort of thing that everybody can do if they learn to embrace these techniques.
Well, language is a good example because everyone speaks at least one language fluently, and we learn it when we're very small, and we don't use grammar books, we don't use verb tables, so it's an amazing thing that anyone can do. But people lose that ability very quickly growing up, and the question is why? Now, linguists have looked at this and they think it's to do with the biology of the brain, because our brains change as we get older and we lose some of that ability that we have when we're very young. But I look at it a little bit differently. I think that it's to do with intuitions, and as we get older, we lose those intuitions because adults tend to make assumptions about whatever it is they're learning. And we build up these assumptions over time, and we kind of get limited, people get limited by them. And savants, we don't have these preconceptions. We look at words, we look at language, and we have all these patterns in our head, and we play with them, and we have fun with them, and it's like how young children learn. Now, we can all do this. There's no reason why you or anyone else couldn't learn Icelandic or other languages using those ideas, and so in the book I give lots of examples to help you do that.
So your point is that we sort of convince ourselves that we're not smart enough to do that stuff.
Exactly. I mean, a lot of it is mental blocks. Savants, you know, we don't care about whether people think we're smart or not. You know, we don't have these preconceptions. Our brains are a little bit different, of course. We are wired a little bit differently. But a lot of the things that we do, everyone does. And to give an example, for example, every time that you make a pun, every time that you're using a metaphor, every time you daydream, you're actually thinking like a savant does. You're actually thinking like I do. So, you know, your mind is doing a lot of the stuff that mind does anyway, and it's just about knowing how to focus that ability on the stuff that's really interesting, doing sums, learning a language, wanting to remember stuff better. And so a lot of it is about confidence. It's about learning how to use the mind better, how to make the most of what you have, which is already amazing. And so that's what I wanted to do. Yes, I have an amazing mind, but everyone does too.
This has to be pretty liberating for you, because you said up until like 10 years ago you didn't really even know what was wrong, right?
Exactly. No, my kind of autism is a very unusual kind. It's a very high functioning form, so my autism wasn't diagnosed until several years ago. And scientific studies of savant syndrome, because it's such a rare condition, are very unusual. And so this book is quite revolutionary in a sense. It's the first account ever by a savant of how his mind works, in depth, giving lots of detail, giving lots of ideas and strategies and techniques, and showing how anyone can learn to do a lot more than they think they can with the brain that's between their ears.
It is pretty fascinating stuff, and it does debunk so many of those myths that we've thought about autism. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
The book, again, is called Embracing the Wide Sky, and to read an excerpt, you can go to abcnewsnow.com and click on the Good Morning America Now link. We'll be right back.